And so I've broken this apart so I can show you how it's put together. The whole thing is driven by a cap screw that I ground down to where it has a square head, because that is the fitting for the barbecue spit. So it's just a square rod that sticks in there and goes through your meat. So anyway, I ground down the head of a stainless steel cap screw and put it through there, put a nut on the other end, and it's as simple as that. Now, what is not as simple as it may seem is getting the hole right in the middle. And let me show you how you do that. And just so you're clear what a cap screw is, it looks like this. So you've seen them. You turn them with Allen wrenches. So it just had a nice shape to it that I could, grind it into a square head. But you can use anything. Use your imagination. Just put some sort of bolt into it, make it square, or it depends on what you're driving it with. Maybe you have a set screw or something that you have to put in. I don't know. So that's up to you. That's where you get to use your creativity. Okay, let me show you how you mark the center on this thing, at least well enough. Here I have a piece of 3/4 inch wood. Doesn't matter what kind. It's a 1x2. So I'm gonna set this down on a flat surface with the wood. I'm gonna put a mark there, and I'm gonna turn a little bit and put another mark. And just keep doing that. And by the time you're done, let's see if I can. By the time you're done, I don't know if you can see it, you've almost made a circle there. And that shows you where to put your drill bit. Trust me, you can't just eyeball it, you gotta do that. Otherwise the whole thing will wobble around. Now you might wonder how I secure the cap to the end. And you don't really have to. You can if you want to. You put a set screw through the side, but and let's see, one last thing, and this is kind of important. It'll just help this thing perform better. Dielectric grease. That's the stuff you get in a little packet when you replace your car battery, and they give you one of those felt things for each terminal, and then they give you a little packet of grease. It's the same stuff. It's a heavy silicone based grease. It works really well for this. I mean, it's really clean stuff. This normally comes in an aerosol can, but well, you can't see in there. But it's a very clear, very very clean, very odorless grease, and it's similar to bell jar vacuum grease. But anyway, put that on the inside of your mechanism, on the inside of the bore and here, and on your shaft here. And what it'll do is not only help everything to turn more freely, but it will also make the valve tighter, airtight. The less leakage you have, just the better it performs. But you could use Vaseline too, right? And then finally, I mounted this whole thing rather inelegantly to a 1x2 little piece of board. And I did it very inelegantly with cable ties. And I did my spacing of the different pieces with rolled up paper. It's pretty sloppy, but not having my workshop near me, I can't cut with my table saw or anything like that. That's all packed up in storage, so it is what it is. But here's the advantage of doing it kind of this way. You want a little bit of play in the system. You want it a little bit loosey-goosey, because when this turns, it's not precisely machined. So it's gonna have a little bit of wobble. You got to give it a little bit of play. You know, this isn't precision machining. So anyway, that is basically the gist of how to put this thing together. You can mount it up the way you need to. As far as what you drive it with, like I say, this is a variable speed barbecue spit gear motor. But I think you could also, you know, if you wanted to be a little bit more elegant, everybody has an inkjet printer somewhere on a junk pile. We go through them like, you know, like nothing else. And so here's what you do. You can cannibalize one of those things. It's got two stepper motors at least. It's got one for the carriage to move it back and forth, and it's got one to roll the paper or feed the paper. So those stepper motors can be driven with what's called a quadrature drive. And the quadrature drive, I don't know, you could probably buy it off of eBay or Amazon, or build it yourself. You know, there are going to be designs online, and the rate at which you clock the thing will determine how fast the assembly turns. And just a note on my motor. Remember I told you how the shaft needs to turn that way, clockwise? All right, this is kind of important. Make sure that your drive will turn the same direction as that. If it turns the other way, it's just going to unwind your screw, and you have to figure out some other way to mount it. So the most convenient way is to have it turn clockwise as you're looking at that. So nice thing about this little unit is it has two different gear directions. It's driven by a DC motor. So all this does basically is it flips the polarity of the power and turns the motor the other way. So so anyway, that's important, and it's also important to make sure you flick it on in the correct direction. So all right, and be careful too when you order something like this, because it depends on what you call clockwise and counterclockwise. I would say clockwise would be turning it this way, but they're looking at it from the standpoint of the machine, where clockwise is turning it in that direction. So what I actually have, that the correct direction is counterclockwise on the motor. So not too intuitive exactly what they mean by clockwise versus counterclockwise. So be careful about that. Ask the vendor before you order, whether that's looking at it or looking away from it. Anyway, basic design, there you go. And remember that in order to make this work, that the one most important piece that I have not included in all this is a qualified respiratory therapist who will set the pressures right, will set the inhalation exhalation rate correctly, and will feed the right amount of oxygen. You can maybe get a clue as to oxygen levels with the little fingertip pulse oximeter, but you know, really it's going to be a respiratory therapist who's best able to provide the proper guidance. So ultimately, that's who you have to depend on to look over your rig and figure out if you have a competent enough design, and if they can stand behind it and program it and make it work right. So, but this will increase your chances. And so if you like this video, if you like this idea, please don't just like my YouTube video, but please tell people about it and refer them to it. And if you have a politician or a hospital administrator or somebody who might be trying to figure out how to cobble together some ad hoc ventilators, please refer them to this video. The reason I'm doing this is I want people to have this resource. So please spread it around, and you know, stay safe, stay well, wash your hands, keep away from folks, don't spread the disease, and try and help out your friends and neighbors. And you know, good luck, and I'm rooting for you. Okay, go to it.